Hey everybody, Steven here, and today this is my non-HDR settings video for the Samsung Neo G7 43-inch monitor. With this, I'm going to have stills just showcasing the settings to start, and then after that I'll actually showcase some gameplay and various adjustments that you would want to kind of systematically go through in order to get this to your liking if this isn't something where you will 100% like the settings that I have, because the black levels here get very dark, and so with this I think this is comparable to an OLED. Now it's not going to match that 100%, especially on the response time, just because those response times are so much faster than this. But in terms of the black levels specifically, with the many LEDs here and those being able to turn off because you have the high number of local dimming zones, I believe it's 1196 here, it does get these black levels very close again to what you would visually see with an OLED. And I'll even give a slight comparison for the OLED that I have to this here in a little bit as I'm showcasing some of this gameplay footage. But let's go ahead and get into the actual settings here. So when you turn the monitor on, you're going to want to hold down the pause play button. This brings up the quick access menu at the bottom. For response time, I have this at faster. The game picture mode is RPG. That's just something I liked this preset more than the other ones. I mentioned this in the review. They're not great, but I do believe any of the adjustments that I'm going to showcase here, if you do that to any of the other presets, it should create the same result. I don't know that 100% for sure, but I do believe that's how it's going to work. But I have ultra wide game view off, virtual aim is off. At the bottom, notice that the FPS is set to 120, HDR is off, and then variable refresh rate says off, but it's actually turned on. I will showcase that here in a minute as well. But with the FPS, the reason it is set to 120 is because this actually flickers on camera if I have it set to 144 Hertz. So you can set it to 144, it just will flicker on camera if I actually showcase footage with that turned on. Now clicking on for the rest of the settings here, game mode is on, response time again is faster, no virtual aim point, core lighting is on, surround sound is on, dynamic black equalizer is set to 0 with this. And then beyond that, when we look at the HDR tone mapping, which is down at the bottom, that's not turned on. We're not using HDR for this, so you don't have to worry about that right now. After this, we're going to go to the regular picture settings. So go all the way to the top, then you just want to go down to the bottom to the expert settings. My camera was having a hard time focusing on this for whatever reason, so my apologies on that. But once we do click on this, you're going to see brightness, contrast, sharpness, color, and tint. Brightness is set to 30, contrast is 40, sharpness is 8, color is 30, and then tint, I haven't changed that. The apply picture settings and picture clarity settings, I haven't messed with that. You can see that those are grayed out. When game mode is on, you don't have access to that, so don't worry about that for right now. Local dimming is turned to high, contrast enhancer is low, color tone is standard, white balance I'm going to look at here in a second. Then we have gamma at 2.2, shadow detail -5, color space is native. Clicking on the white balance here though, you don't have the 20 point, you just have the 2 point with this that we can actually adjust. And with the 2 point, the only thing that I've actually changed here is the red gain. I put that to -15. I noticed with most VA panels, but this one specifically, they can lend themselves to be a little bit more red. So with this, I found that this was just a little bit red, so I took that down to -15, and it seemed to just even everything out, so I had better color. Looking at the gamma on this, I didn't have the other options turned on. You just kind of get to choose from the handful of options that are available in that, and I set this to the 2.2 here. Again, shadow detail is -5. Color space settings, I have that at native, but you do get to choose that color space. That is something that if you wanted to adjust that and see how it looks, you could do that if you wanted to, but for this, like I said, I do have it set to native. Going down to the bottom, again, variable refresh rate is actually turned on, even though the bottom setting said that it was, or the quick access setting said it was turned off. It is on, and I will showcase that again in the Nvidia control panel, that this is on, because this is how I actually have the G-Sync compatibility mode turned on. Shifting over now to the Nvidia control panel, I do have this as a still, that way I can talk a little bit longer here without running into any time limitations. But I do want to mention also that I've made most of the adjustments inside of the actual monitor settings as I could. One, that way it applies to the consoles as well, but also so that you're not needing to adjust much here for PC. Now, I will showcase footage of me running a console with these settings here in a little bit, and that automatically clicks into HDR also if you have it, and it looks good with HDR on or off. That's the good news. Consoles are just a little bit easier. But with this, for PC, brightness, I've left that alone. Contrast is plus 65%, and then gamma I have at 1.2. So subtle adjustment there, and then digital vibrancy and hue, those have been left alone. So again, very minor adjustments here. It's really just contrast and gamma. Showcasing the resolution here, I just wanted to confirm I'm running this 4K at 120 Hertz, just because again, the flickering that the camera will pick up on, or the strobe effect with that. I'm using the default color settings here, but even with that, you can see that this is at the 8-bit color here, so we're not running HDR, which would be 10-bit. And the last thing I wanted to showcase here is just confirming that I am running G-Sync compatibility on this with these settings. Again, I have variable refresh rate turned on, even though in the quick access it's turned off, and I'm not having any issues with that. So all of the settings here will work with G-Sync compatibility mode turned on. Shifting over now to gameplay footage. So this, I'm playing Destiny 2. My first recommendation is play, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 games that you play quite often with these settings, and see if any adjustments in the game settings, like the brightness levels, are something that you can adjust without needing to make any adjustments to the monitor itself or the Nvidia control panel. That way you're nailing down the look through the game and not, again, going back and needing to make adjustments to the monitor or the Nvidia control panel. So do that through, again, 2, 3, maybe 4 games. That way you have a good collection of games and like, all right, this is the baseline in terms of the look of this monitor that I can achieve. Then after that, if you want to adjust anything, that's where you can look to the monitor itself. So first thing I would most likely adjust, if it looks too dark, you could adjust the contrast and the brightness. You could also adjust the intensity of the local dimming. Because we have this on high, maybe you turn that down to low. After that, I would look at the contrast enhancer, shadow detail, and dynamic black equalizer as adjustments that you could make. The final thing would be looking at the Nvidia control panel, but I would tier these out, starting with what I talked about first, all the way through these, and then the Nvidia control panel last. And with the Nvidia control panel, the only 2 things you're going to adjust are going to be the gamma and the contrast. So those are easy adjustments to make. Now, why you would want to adjust this, the black levels here are, I mean, they're like an OLED. So it is a pure black on this because of the local dimming being on high specifically, and then all the different settings that we have with contrast and brightness. So it can be hard to see certain things. Again, I'm playing Destiny 2 here, and on certain platforms, it's like, I don't even know where I'm going because it just, you jump and it just turns into pitch black, where normally you might be able to see a little bit more. I would still start with the game brightness first before you mess with any of those other settings, just because it's the easiest thing to do. But again, if the black levels here are not to your liking, those other settings are things to adjust and see, can you get this in that exact sweet spot that you like. Now, I did want to showcase the PlayStation 5 with these exact settings. This is with HDR turned off. I think it looks great. It looks just as good as when HDR is on. You can force HDR to turn on. It'll keep all of the settings, except it's going to then change the gamma to the ST, I think it's the 0.2084. So there's some adjustments you would need to do to kind of get it back towards this, but I think it looks just as good in my opinion. With the local dimming here, this is Horizon Forbidden West. This is the Burning Shores DLC, and in the dark areas, it looks great. It looks exactly like the PC. So maybe you adjust this in the brightness settings where you do make this a little bit brighter if you don't like this, or again, you can do the same adjustments that I talked about with just changing changing the local dimming to low or the contrast enhancer, anything like that, that would still apply here as well. Well, that's going to be it for this video. I think visually, now that I've spent a month really trying to nail down the settings with this monitor, I've gotten it to a point that I truly enjoy this. Now, the response time isn't as fast as an OLED, but visually it looks as close as I think I can get this to what an OLED looks like, which I'm actually going to showcase some footage of an OLED. This is the ROG PG42UQ, and I think for the black levels and then just the color and the vibrancy that has, I've been able to get the Samsung Neo G7 as close to that, like I said, as I can, and I am quite happy with the results. I do hope this helps everybody. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know in the comment section. But also keep in mind, this is just kind of a launching off point for you to adjust your settings to your likings as well. But again, hopefully this helps you at least get it close to that, because I know a lot of people have voiced their concern because it's just initially not an impressive monitor, and it's quite frustrating when you first start because you spent all this money on it and you hope that it looks great out of the box and it doesn't. But with this, I think a lot of people are going to like this setting, and it's going to put it at a point where it is more enjoyable and you do feel like you're now getting your money's worth out of this very expensive monitor. Well, that's going to be it for this one, everybody. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, like my upcoming HDR settings video, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.